Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of AUHSD Future Talks. I'm your co-host today, Michael Matsuda, the superintendent of the Anaheim Union High School District, and I want to introduce my co-host, John Bautista.
Greetings, all. Thank you so much. This is John Bautista. I'm the Public Information Officer for Anaheim Union High School District. Really excited for this panel. With that said, let me hand it off to our Kennedy team, starting with our student, Madalynn.
Hi, my name's Madalynn Mavis, and I am a current senior at John F. Kennedy High School who is in the AI pathway.
And my name is Julie Foy. I am a teacher at Kennedy High School teaching in the AP and IB programs.
Hi, I'm Paola Rosenberg. I am the AI coordinator for Kennedy and a science teacher. Sean?
Hello, my name is Sean Manning, production and managerial arts teacher at Magnolia High School.
Hi, my name is Solorzano, and I am a history teacher at Cambridge Virtual Academy.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rob Gaudette. I'm a lesson design coach and instructional coach at Dale Junior High School, where I also teach, and I do also teach along with Solorzano at Cambridge Virtual Academy. And Mr. Fried?
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Jaron Fried, Assistant Superintendent, Anaheim Union High School District Ed Services. It's great to be with all of you today.
Okay, we have an amazing lineup of guest speakers, all part of our AUHSD family here. And the hot topic is AI and what is it going to do to education, to teaching and learning? What does it mean for the world of work? And we in the Anaheim Union High School District have this amazing panel to talk about all these questions and probably much more. And so we're going to get right into it, you guys, because the hot topic is about Chat GPT and how that is transforming teaching and learning. And many districts are debating this, and some have even firewalled it to keep all of this stuff outside of the classroom. And we have not taken a position on any of this. And I am interested in hearing from our group. I know that I've had conversations with Mr. Rob Gaudette about this very issue. And I would like to just start off, Rob, and get your opinion on whether these tools like Chat GPT should be brought into the classroom.
Well, anytime there's a new technology, we really got to rethink about how we're doing things, how we're practicing. And if we're teaching our kids to do something that a bot can do or that AI can do, I think we got to rethink whether or not we should be doing that task with our kids. Because if they're not going to be doing it when they get a job, what are we really preparing them for?
Madalynn, I'm interested in your perspective as a student. What do you think about this debate?
I think that since Chat GPT and other AI or open source things have been becoming so popular lately, especially with students using them, I feel as though teachers, rather than outright banning it, we should find a way to be able to use it as a tool in the classrooms to help our students. We're not saying just to use it straight outright, do all your essays on Chat GPT, but to figure out a way to incorporate it into the education system.
Ray, would you like to add to that?
Sure. I think it's important as a teacher to remember that, we're facilitators of information. We're not gatekeepers. So if that's the source that the student is using, we need to be able to teach them how to analyze that information, have effective media literacy to really understand that the news, the information, the sources that they're getting.
And Julie, I think you also had something to add to that.
Yeah, I think one of the things we can look at in terms of using it as a tool as a history teacher, I had the kids look at a prompt of asking about how Louis XIV would have viewed tax policy. And the kids had a really good kind of conversation with Chat GPT and actually found some inconsistencies and information that was incorrect. So it showed them why it was important for them to know the history first and kind of some of the pitfalls of Chat GPT.
Jaron?
Yeah, I just want to add to what's been said, but the artificial intelligence revolution is going to be here whether we like it or not. I think teaching our students and empowering our students to use it for good rather than for the negative is going to be essential. And I also think about the work that we've done as a district with civic engagement. I would like to think that so many of our students are going to be just fascinated about not only the growth that's happening with AI, but right now there's not a lot of policies and rules out in governments and whatnot in terms of how to really manage this revolution that's coming before our eyes. And it'd be very interesting to get our students to really think about how we can create a space where it can live within our world in a productive and healthy way. I think about social media. I was a brand new administrator when social media first came about, and it was kind of cute as a way to connect with your friends. And now we see all kinds of stuff happening with social media, and you're constantly seeing people being banned from this or this being done. I think if we can learn from those experiences with AI, we might be able to really get out in front and leverage this for a lot of good.
No, I just wanted to add on, Dr. Fried mentioned, the civic engagement work that we've done here. And Facing History has a wonderful lesson that ends almost in a social contract with the classroom. So I used it this year to ask the students, like, what rules should be in place in our classroom, right? Not district-wide, but just in our classroom, because I'm not going to outright ban it. I can't stop them. And many of them just said, and it kind of tailored into like, okay, we need to add some kind of author's note. If you used Chat GPT, why did you use it? Where did you use it? To really keep that critical thinking piece alive. My students agreed to it, so it's kind of that open policy, like use it whenever you want, just kind of cite your sources.
Just kind of adding to what Ray said, cite your sources. It'll give you, Chat GPT will give you the sources, but they might not be the correct sources. So it's very important to go back and do the research yourself and find where the information came from. Then you could use it instead of just plagiarizing what Chat GPT gave you.
Yeah, Madalynn, you had mentioned using AI as a tool, and I think that's exactly what we need to do. The phrase I think that I would like to share with y'all is having students write with Chat GPT instead of having GPT write for them. And that's huge. And Jaron, to go back to what you were talking about, it as we come into this and there's a lot of fear, fear of cheating, which brings in what Sean and Ray were talking about with data dignity, and perhaps in the future, AI created materials might have a watermark, perhaps, that this was partially or wholly or entirely created by a bot. But going back to what we need to do, and I think this is why this is such a great idea for a forum, is we need time to process this, and we need to talk about it. We need to look at the correct use and look at the ethical issues of using Chat GPT in the classroom.
I have a follow-up question about this. The blogger Seth Godin has said that AI will eliminate mediocrity in the workforce and potentially in schoolwork. Can anybody comment on what he meant by that?
So what I believe that he meant by that is that students will now have a tool that can already write or do work at an above mediocre level. So by taking that starting point and then going above and beyond and editing it and making it even better, that's cutting out the mediocre work that many students can produce throughout the year. By using something like Chat GPT or other AI sources, they'll be able to make something that's already above that level and then use their own skills to adapt it.
So yeah, and just kind of tagging onto that, and he's talking that in his essay about kind of the writing and how teachers grade writing, and that we have to use this efficiency model to be able to get through the numbers of essays, and as a result, we're not really looking for deep thinking. And I really think what ChatGPT or any of these AI sources is going to allow for in our classrooms is to allow more time for Socratic style seminars, things where we're really pushing thinking by the kids and hearing their ideas. Yes, they're going to still need to know how to write. They're going to need to understand how to use structure to make an argument. But I think that hopefully with these tools, we'll be able to facilitate that a little bit faster to really get at their thinking. And I kind of felt like that was what he was arguing in the essay.
Yeah, it's about efficiency, right? And both from the teacher perspective and again from the student. Madalynn, that was a great point you made. Jaron, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, so for me, I'm also thinking about, one of the things that we ask of our teachers throughout the district is to differentiate instruction, right? To really look at where their students are at and meet their needs rather than kind of teach the middle. And one of the things that we've learned from the gentleman who I think created Khan Academy, he talks about the research in terms of having this one-on-one tutor. And I do think the use of AI is going to be able to personalize more of the instructional aspects for our students, and I think also for our staff in the way that they approach lesson design and et cetera, where you're going to have this assistant that is with you constantly that can help really take your learning to the next level, where the teacher is no longer, yes, they're still differentiating, but you can have this little assistant in class to help grow and spur the needs based on where each student is at, as opposed to the teacher doing this work on his or her own. They have now this tool that's going to really more rapidly and more effectively help move their students up where they're no longer living in that land of mediocrity, right? They're really growing and showing their assets. So I think that's a benefit we're going to get from this.
I just wanted to add on to what Dr. Fried said about the Khan Academy AI that they're developing. They're basically developing a tutor that, based on the user's input, adapts to their learning style. So it can kind of figure out if the student is more of a visual learner or if it's more of a hands-on learner, and give the help that it can the best way. And the way that it does work, I did a little research on the Khan Academy AI tutor, is that it tries its best to work you through a problem without giving you the answer. With Khan Academy, when you go and you get help, eventually, if you click help enough times, it just outright gives you the answer. And the ideal with this tutor is to be able to work through the student with their own specific needs and show them how to get to the answer themselves.
You know, I just want to point out again to our audience that Madalynn is a student. What grade are you in, Madalynn?
I'm a senior.
Yeah, they're just awesome stuff. And I see Rob Gaudette, Mr. Gaudette has his hand raised.
I raised it earlier when you were talking about Seth Godin's article. He also wrote a great piece about the, I think it's called The End of the High School Essay, in terms of now we no longer need to do that. But in his podcast, I think when he talks about, humans are not going to out Chat GPT. But it's up to us to use Chat GPT, like I said a moment ago, to write with Chat GPT, use it as a starting point, and then we become the jazz musician of a 5-paragraph essay, right? We break from the script and we bring the humanity into the humanity and the character into our writing to go above and beyond what we used to be able to do.
Well, I was kind of just going to piggyback on Madelynn's. One of the things I've been looking at, we're a Google district, and I was looking at how they're starting to have their new practice sets, where it's similar to like the Khan Academy tutor, but it's more like math practice sets and things where students will be able to work on the problems, and then there'll be little hints along the way. And, as a teacher, as a parent, when I'm sitting at home with a kid trying to do math homework, that's kind of exciting for me, that I'd love to see their, our teachers be able to do more in-depth problem solving and hands-on, exploration of problems that are bigger problems, and being able to deal with some of those base level building blocks at home, and kind of with that AI helping as a tutor.
I wanted to go back to what Rob said about the concept of these tools creating more like a jazz approach to the world, to the content. What did you mean by that, Rob?
Well, kind of breaking away from the script, just to do things a little differently. We sometimes we forget about the creativity being a completely different intelligence. But if we can get a non-writer, or maybe even someone who isn't fluent in English, or maybe someone who can't communicate well, using some AI tools to bring them into the conversation and to have them share their talent with us. If they can get to that point, no matter how they get there, then I think we got to bring Chat GPT into the equation. We got to take advantage of everything that can have any kind of influence on the productivity and the creativity of our students.
Thank you, Rob, for sharing that. Looking at Seth Godin's blog about the end of the essay, as you're saying, but really getting to more things that are human skills, human based. What I mean by that is, when I first heard of Chat GPT, in my mind, I saw it as like a calculator for my history class, and I was so excited about this because, as Rob said, right, we have all these different competencies in our classroom, and oftentimes, as a teacher, I'm going to just be honest here and say it almost loses the urge, right, to get to that Socratic seminar, that debate, that civil discourse, because I'm so lost in helping them get to the research, right? And that's absolutely important, and that still must be taught. But for me, when I could use Chat GPT and just kind of level the playing field real quick, and they get to that creative part, right? I heard Julie say earlier about, hey, we're speaking in the voice of. I did something very similar for my World War I lesson around Valentine's Day, where I had all my students research them, and they all went on, a speed dating round. But my students are able to do that, and I would say 10, 15 minutes max. And we got to spend 30 minutes with the students interacting and collaborating, first person voice, right? For me, that's where like that game changing ability with AI could really shine through. That flipped classroom model, less time on the back end stuff, where we could really just get the students in with that creativity, the things that will never go away with computers.
Ray, I think that's a huge metaphor you just used, a calculator for a history class. To amplify the ability to get to that deep area of Socratic seminar. I mean, those get to the point of really teaching and learning. Madalynn, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to what Ray was saying about having more time for a Socratic seminar. I feel like this would have been really useful in my AP Lang class last year because we spent so much of our time writing that we only had 1 or 2 Socratic seminars throughout the year. And my teacher, when we had an end of the year evaluation, she asked us what's something that we could do to improve the class. And all of us said that we wanted more time talking with each other, having seminars, just being able to communicate. But we couldn't because so much of that time was taken up by writing in class every day, which is an important part. But easily, a lot of that work could have been, the weight could have been shifted onto the AI source, and we still would have got the same amount of learning done. We still would have been able to figure out how to write our essays for the AP test.
Yeah, so I want to just preface, but before I start talking, the teacher in this matters, right? I don't think for a second in my role, right, the Chat GPT or artificial intelligence should threaten our teachers, especially in our district. When I think about the career preparedness systems framework, those are the leadership skills, right? That's the stuff that you're not going to get through the support of AI necessarily. And I think as our teachers think about how to integrate this into the classroom and support students on an academic level, it's those skills and the voice, right? Our students' voice, it's going to make all the difference. And, we can produce a bunch of students who might be ready to become a doctor, but our students are going to have bedside manners. Right. And that matters. And that's the human element that I think our teachers, especially in our district, are equipped and prepared to bring to our students, where the AI can only enhance that experience, but it's through our teachers that it's going to be real and really meaningful.
Dr. Fried said something I think that's really important that I think is going to be controversial too, about whether AI can replace teachers or not. I'd like to come back to this and after Sean adds to that.
Well, just touching on, the benefits for our, like we're talking a lot about students, we're going to be able to, personalize the learning, and we're going to be able to provide intelligent tutoring that we could direct the students to.
And I think we have Julie and then Paola after that.
One of the things I was going to say is that in our district, we pride ourselves in knowing our students by name and need. And I think that's something that Chat GPT AI can't do. And so knowing the kids sitting in my class, knowing how they're going to respond when they read perhaps some feedback from Chat GPT is a really important part and a really important role for me as the coach that is helping alongside. And so I think that's something we need to keep in mind, is that AI will never know our kids by name and need. And that's really the human element that we can bring to the picture.
Yeah, to add to Julie's point, when we look at our students, there are things that our students bring to the table. There's plurilingual students that are in our campuses, and ChatGPT might not be something that is supporting them. And so it's also knowing the limitations of the AI and how to support our students in utilizing those technologies to support their learning, but also to know when we as teachers need to step in and give our students voice so that they know when to use those resources so that they can then use that to leverage their voice.
Madalynn, I know you have something to add there, but do you think AI could replace teachers at some point in the future? Maybe not all of them, but some of them.
So I don't think that they could replace teachers. They are able to do a lot of the heavy work of teaching, but like Ms. Foy said earlier, there's not that human connection. And for me personally, when I connect with a teacher, I learn so much better in that class. That human to human connection is so vital to learning. And that's something that an AI is not going able to provide to a student.
I think the question, John, is really about pedagogy. Will it replace certain pedagogies? And Rob, do you want, and that could be a teacher, right? Depending on the pedagogy that teacher is using. So I guess I want to, Rob, you've had your hand up, but if you could comment on this, because this is really a big question about, and this is why I think some people fear this technology and they try to firewall it. Rob.
A few minutes ago, I spoke about Seth Godin and breaking away from the script. And if you have a teacher that's teaching straight out of the teacher's manual, I think a robot could do that probably even more effectively. But that implies that the teacher's not taking the time to, like Madalynn said, to connect with their kids, because nothing builds a classroom, nothing builds learning like that relationship. And I think that's the essence of what's going to keep a teacher in the profession. You got to balance AI with the humanness that we all that really brought us into education is connecting with kids and helping them find out what they're good at and do good with it. And I think AI can be a pretty good tool at that. For example, if we're trying to find ways to connect our content, our skills, our curriculum with the lives of the students, we could put a query into AI. Why would a young skateboarding kid in Anaheim want to learn about the American Revolution? And that might give us an in to connect with that kid, and that light bulb might, illuminate, and we might bring the kid in through. And again, I just came up with skateboarding. And Paola mentioned plurilingual learners, and just being able to connect with them in their culture, just to bring them in to your classroom and your content, and that's what I think, at least currently in 2023, generative learning is not going to be able to replicate.
I was thinking about how we have some students who are scared to use their voice, and then in using these tools, we can shift them towards positions of activism and leadership, maybe where they weren't comfortable in being before, but because they've had this tiny step or this tiny tool that has moved them forward, they're able to process their thinking in a different manner by using like I would say, like Photor or Nightcrawler for visualizing a picture or an image, thinking about keywords in pictures. Our students don't have to focus on the visual drawing, but they're thinking about the keywords. So it's wrapping the visual thinking plus the reading and writing in one space, and it's producing for them something that they can talk upon. And that's very powerful for some of our students who don't know where to start. They have this tool in front of them that has helped them process it. And then from there, they're like, oh, this is what I've made from my thinking. Let me share this. So I think of the people who are voiceless or are scared to use their voice, and this being a tool for them.
We can ask these, we could be walking around our classroom, maybe we're tired, maybe it's the end of the day, and we could ask generative AI, how can I support, give me 5 strategies right now to support this plurilingual student, and it's going to come up really quick, and that might just be what you need to kind of start the conversation with that student.
So I think, and Mike, you mentioned this earlier about AI making teachers more efficient, but it's humans more efficient, right? And so I think AI's goal is to support humans in the work and augment the abilities rather than replace them. And what I mean by that is, as a history teacher, right, we talk about industrial revolutions and, what happens to this different industry. Ditch diggers have been around, since, I don't know, the age of time, right? When the steam-powered shovel came about, it's not that those people that were digging ditches stopped digging ditches, right? Somebody has to figure out how to run that machine. And I think teaching is very similar in that regard, that there will be a shift in how we teach, but there's still always going to be that need for teachers. But it is a scary proposition, right? If we talk about all this efficiency, do we need less teachers? Perhaps. So that's where it's that competition to really learn. And I think Alex Cotran said it, right? Like, if you do not know how to use AI tools, you will be outcompeted by someone who does. And that's where that shift in mindset really needs to happen in teaching.
Jaron, putting on your assistant soup hat of education, how do we widen the net in terms of professional learning for teachers that are struggling with what Ray just said?
Well, I think for our district, we have to be really intentional with how we integrate AI into our own professional learning that we do with teachers. How are we modeling its use within our own structures, our own meetings, et cetera? I was going to say to Ray's point earlier that our students are incredibly bright. And listen, if you have teachers who are resisting and not wanting to adapt to this new tool, the students are going to be able to sniff that out pretty quickly when they're getting these incredible experiences in these other classes. Yet in this class, I'm still doing the worksheet. And I know Rob has a fancy name for the worksheet. I can't remember what it is, but it's like you're going to start to see a widening of those who are using this to leverage what they're creating for the students. You talked about instructional pedagogy versus those who aren't. I think our charge as a district is to really make sure we create the experience and the opportunity for our staff to engage in a safe way, where they leverage this as kind of the new normal. Just like when we came out of the pandemic, we did not want to go back to the way things were. We wanted to leverage the best of what we learned from the pandemic to be part of our new normal. I think this is adding to that new normal.
By the way, Rob calls it a shut up sheet for worksheets. So.
I couldn't remember. I knew it was something cool.
That's not coming from admin, that's coming from the teacher. Julie, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think it's been really fun as we've been dealing with this and having teachers start to reach out that were maybe some of our more traditional, worksheet type teachers. I had a science teacher reach out that wanted to do a collaborative activity with a presentation that normally would never have done anything like this, and wanted help from me about, well, how do I even go about creating a rubric for this? And I said, you know what, that would be a really good use for AI. Here's how you can enter a prompt, put in your parameters, ask it for a chart. And it really made it more efficient for this teacher who was already hesitant, but was now able to kind of have a grading system for that class within 10 minutes. Now starting to do some of those things of the 5 C's and incorporating some of those things that we want to see across the district, because AI helped make it a more efficient process for the teacher. So the teacher had the creativity and the great assignment and the thinking, but was afraid to implement because of the time required.
Julie, I can't emphasize that enough, because this new AI technology is actually going to make teaching more efficient. Teachers more efficient. Paula, you had your hand raised.
To add to, at Kennedy, we've been working on this in our task force and giving opportunities for teachers to question their pedagogy and shift their mindset on what does it look like to teach within an AI within an AI space. And I think that's one of the benefits of our district, that our drivers are not scores. Our drivers are students, the who they come out, what skills they come with, their hard skills, soft skills. And so in these safe spaces, we've been able to think about, question, and design activities that our students have never been able to do before. Like, one of our English teachers created an activity about Frankenstein. Frankenstein's not really a loved book, but for our current generation of students, but because they were able to generate Frankenstein AI visions and images, it empowered the students and it made them feel like, okay, this is another way of thinking about literature. And I think that was a space that we were able to create and support because we're willing to take a risk. And that's the nice thing about AI in our district.
I think Paola mentioned it very well. You talk about the right drivers. And if we're chasing a test score, we cannot out Chat GPT to chase a test score. That can gauge our kids, give them the high stakes questions, and then create a plan for them to get, proficiency or exceptional. But I think when you're looking at replacing the role of a teacher, if you have a teacher that's just teaching to the test or teaching to an interim or a benchmark test, then Chat GPT can do a better job than that, because that's the mediocrity that we want to get away from. But I think when we incorporate and when we blend humanness with Chat GPT and we bring that into our curriculum, it really opens the door. In fact, pushes a more project or problem-based learning, where kids are involved in real, hands-on, relevant, real-world problems, and using Chat GPT as a tool to address and even to acknowledge the world around them.
So this was just a thought that I had while everyone was talking about the question, can AI replace a teacher? Currently in the US, what we're seeing is a large deficit of teachers. There's not enough, there's too many students to one teacher. The ratio's way off. And I was just thinking about this. AI could be a way to help supplement that, to kind of reach out to all those students rather than just one teacher being left with 45 kids in a classroom. There's no way to be able to communicate with every single one on a daily basis. There's not enough time in the day. And AI could be a potential fix to that, or a potential supplement to be able to interact with those kids and make sure they are getting the help that they need.
Sean, I also know that you wanted to add something to that, but I'm also interested in how you apply AI, because I know you have an interesting way, and how other teachers here are applying AI beyond even Chat GPT.
Wow, I jumped in, and the students, when you mention Chat GPT, they get excited. Two particular ways that I used it. One, I teach an internship course, and we created a database of all the local resources around Anaheim, homeless shelters, food distribution points, and the students were able to go into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT where these resources were located. Then we had to put the human aspect on the next part of it, because then we had to call and make sure that these facilities were actually open for business and that this was the correct information for them. So that's how we use it in our career pathway internship class. in my broadcasting class, we try to keep a script fresh every single day. We try to, go with the themes. Black History Month, for example, is one, and we want to write a new script every day. So we're using Chat GPT to write those scripts, because it's a lot to ask of a student, to come to my broadcasting class and go out and write me a script every single day, when they're doing all this other work across their class, and also when I'm teaching an elective, right? So we're able to really keep our scripts fresh, using Chat GPT, and then find resources in our community with it as well.
So I'm going to switch gears here. I think one of the big challenges of AI is the ethics of it, because the country and the world has let the genie out of the bottle. And like nuclear energy and like other things that can be used for good, it could also be used for bad things. I'd like to ask the group, what do we need to do to ensure that students have an ethical grounding in this explosive technology?
I think right now we're at a tipping point, and you said it, Mike, but it's, I think AI, like social media and so many other things, it could be utopia, it could be dystopia, right? Depending on which way we go. And right now, because we're at this inflection point, I think we have agency at the moment, right? Where there's good actors, there's bad actors. If enough good actors step up, and George Kiro's famous quote, I love it, if the positives can outweigh the negatives, right? If we can get enough good actors who are operating from a place of, humanity, then we could we could speak louder than those bad actors. And what I'm afraid of is, the driver is profit, right? And so you're going to have a lot of companies that are putting a lot of time, money, investment into research and development. So we need to make sure that, schools, other, not-for-profit businesses are really out there to just make humanity better. Like I said, I think if the teachers, enough of teachers can get that collective voice to do more good than bad, I think that's where we start. Not where we finish, but definitely where we start.
I think this is why our vision to create a better world grounded in compassion and caring is going to be so important. So thank you, Ray. Julie, hand it off to you.
I think we've set ourselves up in this district to really kind of handle this issue by having our civic engagement kind of programs in place, because our students are already thinking civically minded. They're thinking about the greater good. And so I think with taking that constructivist approach, I think it's going to be really important for us as a district to continue to hear those student voices and actively engage them in helping to decide what is ethical and not ethical about our use within the AUHSD, and then applying it more broadly. Just really hearing those student voices and making sure they know that they are valued, and having those internal debates on a regular basis with the kids about every time we're using it. Was this ethical? Was it not? What made it ethical? What made it not ethical? But continuing to hear from those student voices, because this is something they're going to have to take with them long term. They're going to need to be, this isn't going to be a one and done with what is this ethical? These are going to be repeated conversations they're going to be having throughout their lives. So I think our whole focus on this civic engagement is going to be really important.
And I think it's for like the agency, right? It's a big piece of it, and it's how we as teachers model it to our students, and it's how we embrace the technology. If we're not using Chat GPT in our classroom, then maybe our kids are using it in the wrong way somewhere else. But if we're showing them the correct way and making sure they're citing their sources and being ethical with it, then it starts there. I watched a podcast just the other night with Steve Wolf, and the creator of OpenAI, they're asking the government to help them regulate. So this is a big question, but I think it just starts with our own civic engagement piece that we've instilled in our students, and just modeling it how to use it the correct way.
I'm going to add on to what Mr. Manning just said about making sure that students are aware. We can't just hide this from students. If you tell a student don't use it, it's human nature. They're going to go and use it. If you just outright say, do not do this, human nature, we will go against it and do it. So we need to be able to find a way to use it with students to say, listen, this is here. It is a tool, and we are going to set up rules and regulations to be able to use this effectively and ethically. So to me, I feel like there should be different layers of rules and regulations, have a district-wide and a school-wide or even teacher-wide, just based on a classroom-to-classroom basis of how they want to use AI. I definitely don't think there is one right way to do it. So to me, there shouldn't be a district-wide, this is how you have to use it, because each teacher is going to use it differently for their students. Each student is going to interact with it differently. And that's the whole point of AI, to be able to have those different experiences. But we should be saying to students that we can use this as a tool, but these are the precautions set in place. Like with Turnitin, they just released their new AI checker. It's a good scenario would be to tell the students, okay, you can use AI as a tool to help you write a paragraph, maybe. Like if you're struggling on a paragraph, you can use it to help you out, but no more than that. And if a student goes and uses it for the whole essay, that Turnitin checker is going to be able to nip that in the butt and say, hey, the student completely plagiarized their essay.
Madalynn, what about bullying? Bullying, I think that's going to be a big problem for districts across the country. Mm-hmm. Students creating some rather horrific types of, the AI impersonating an ex-girlfriend or boyfriend and doing all these horrible things. I think we're going to enter a phase in this country where that is going to be on like steroids. What do you say? I mean, from a student's perspective, what would you say to a district to deal with this?
Well, I know currently districts, they tried their best to regulate just social media bullying in general, and already that is very hard. I've seen it at my own school. It takes a while for that process to go through to find the original poster, but I think being able to have a way to track it back to the original person with AI, I'm not sure, 100% sure how it would work. Or there could be certain keywords in the AI. So if you type out, write a mean message about this, that it would block it and say, sorry, I can't do that. That goes against my terms of policy or terms of use.
Exactly. I think, Ray mentioned good actors and bad actors, and bad actors will use their power for evil, right? We've learned that historically. And I think a part of that is, to humanitizing AI. Is this the new humanity? And with that, a lot of people talk about the values that AI will have, instilling some sort of value set into AI. And the question I always have is, well, whose values and who gets to decide those values that generative AI is going to use? Because we've already seen, even with Chat GPT 3, that it can learn to be biased, even more so if its data is biased. So again, discussion and debate, transparency, how we're using it, its best uses. I think those are all things that we got to keep talking about.
I think to add to Rob's point, it's about creating spaces in our classrooms, these safe spaces where students can ask those questions, where they can say, is this okay? Am I allowed to use this? How do I use this? For them to know that we want what's best for them, but we want them to show how to be empathetic and how to ask questions in a way that aren't hurtful. And it's important for us to, as teachers, like the AI can't do this. It's our jobs. So we're going to step in and we're going to provide those frameworks for our students. But also, it's going to take all of educators to do this, because we all need to be stepping up into these spaces where the technology is going to be fighting us or being used against us or being used with us, like alongside us. And so we really need to recenter ourselves and be like, what is the driver? What are we looking to do? How do we support the students so that when they leave, they are going to be a positive global citizen that is going to contribute to our future? And how can we support them so that they can use these tools and leverage them to continue this beautiful society that we've built up? So,
we're getting to the end of the discussion here, but I do want to bring up something I think is super important related to that, Paola, and that is, you are all ahead of the curve here as far as applying and understanding AI. What would you say to those teachers that are starting? Julie kind of touched upon this earlier, but how does a teacher that feels like they're not tech savvy enough or they don't understand it, what are those baby steps that they should be taking or that they take? Go ahead, Sean.
have a conversation with Chat GPT. Just go in and just ask your wildest question, and just start building off of it. And then next thing you know, you might have been talking to Chat GPT for 2 hours as it's sharing you the most intense knowledge of how the world was formed. Just dive in and take a swim.
Madalynn, what's your advice?
My advice to teachers would be to be able to look at it as a tool for themselves. So to be able to say, I want a test about Civil War. Can you make me a test that's 10 questions long about the Civil War, and each question is different? That might be a helpful tool to teachers to be able to create something really quick on the fly that isn't already on the internet that students can look up the answer to. So that might be good for teachers or for lesson planning, quiz making, all those sorts of things.
Creating the space for teachers to ask and be uncomfortable themselves. That's we want to model to our students curiosity, but not just curiosity, but we're asking our students to do these great things, and so we should be modeling that for our students. Educators should be ahead of the curve, and as we do this, I always want to remind our group, you don't have to know how to do AI. You just need to know that it's there, and you need to know how to use it in your space. So you don't have to be the you don't have to know about machine learning. It's not about that. It's about, now that we have this tool, what can we do with it?
Yeah, precisely. We don't have to know how the internet works to use the internet. Early on, I've said this to be my third time bringing up the question about discussing debating AI. And I brought that up with my department back in December. I asked one of my department members, what's your lesson on today? And he says, I'm teaching the Constitutional Convention. So I typed in, please, can you create a lesson to how to teach the Constitutional Convention? And it got a full-on, very traditional lesson, Madalynn Hunter, 5-step lesson plan. And then one very wise and experienced veteran teacher in my department says, there's no anticipatory set. So I said, add an anticipatory set. Boom, there's an anticipatory set. There's no rubric. We'll create a rubric. There's no collaboration. Add collaborative structures. And within a minute, we had a lesson that it's going to have to be doable, right? You got to make some changes to incorporate it. Anyway, short story long, before I cut off, that same teacher used Chat GPT throughout the year, and just last week his kids were finishing a Civil War board game that Chat GPT created. He created the whole 2-week unit. What you're doing this day, here's the rubric, here's some samples, here's some resources.
Rob, it's all about jazz. That's just an example of the creativity that comes out using Chat GPT. I want to, we're just going to run out of time here, a couple minutes. I do want to come back to Ray, though, real quickly. Ray and a handful of other teachers went to a conference recently at San Diego, put on by Arizona State University and the greater Silicon Valley, SVU. Ray, in 1 minute, can you summarize what you saw?
So I think the idea is, we have competition, right? We've been talking about it for a while with charter schools that started, but now new ideas have emerged, right? Where there's different ways where your child can be educated. And so I think the challenge for us is many parents, according to the conference that I went to, are demanding, a transformation of education. They don't just want those small changes. They want literal transformation of the current education, the state of education. And so the status quo isn't working anymore. So how can we potentially, and as a large district, right, how can we find that pocket that fits all the different wants and needs of our families? That's not to say every family wants this transformative experience with AI, but how can we build a school within a school, a micro school, to really kind of foster what the families are asking? Because ultimately, right, sure, we're a nonprofit, but we're a business at heart, right? We need to make sure that we are satisfying our customers. If our customers are demanding something new, we need to make sure that we are giving them what they want.
Thank you, Ray. I think we could have this discussion for hours and hours. It's such great ideas coming out. Thank you all so much. And I think the discussion will continue, and we want it to continue. And I know that Superintendent Matsuda has already started talking about the AI Summit coming up. And let me throw it to you, Superintendent. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we are very honored to have a national partner called AIEDU. It's a nonprofit, and that we have been selected and identified as one of the national leaders in K-12 AI pathways, but also generative AI, which is cross-content. This conversation that we just had is reflective of where our district is. As many districts are struggling to keep AI out, we have embraced it for the most part. And you teachers and Madalynn, you represent really the future of education in not only in Anaheim Union, but potentially nationally. And that's what this AI Summit will be. It's a national K-12 summit to be held in Anaheim in the spring of 2024. So more to come on this. We just wanted to, this is kind of a teaser, this special 45 minute panel. And we're so honored and blessed to have amazing teachers and student. Madalynn, you represent all of our 28,000 students today, but so well spoken. And on behalf of all of the teachers and our greater community, and certainly on behalf of our Board of Trustees, I want to thank you for participating in this special edition of AUHSD Future Talks. Thank you so much.